Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I am joined by rapper and actor Tenn Buick. Welcome, Tenn.
Hey, what up, Allie? Pleasure to be here. I got to tell you, I checked out your Jay Lender episode. I really liked it a lot.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Yeah, he was really awesome to chat with. I love chatting with like animation folks. To start with you though, Tenn, I'd love to talk about your amazing bride and groom first dance video. It's incredible. If anyone listening you haven't seen it, you got to go check it out on YouTube. It's phenomenal. Oh my
Oh,
God.
thank you so much.
Amazing. So I gotta know, like, how long did it take to choreograph and rehearse all that? Please, I'd love to hear.
I would say approximately a year of time went into that because
Wow.
because our wedding planning process was a little interesting because we initially our wedding was supposed to be in 2020, and obviously everyone knows what happened there. But we ended up pushing it, I think, once or twice more because every like we pushed it a year, and then there was a new variant that came out, and so I think the regulations weren't looking like great. And for us, we've been together for so long. Like this September will be 16 years. So there will be like there was a lot of people that have been kind of looking forward to this event. So we were like, we only want to do it when we can do it proper. Like, I don't want masks. I don't want this and that. I want all my people and I want them to have a good time. So we waited until there were, it was safe for everyone and there were no regulations, pandemic or like regulations to follow. So that gave us the time to really like plan it out. And this was, I'm happy to say that what ended up transpiring was exactly the way that we envisioned it. I had this idea, or both of us had this idea that we wanted it to be very 90s Bollywood because both of us grew up on that stuff. And it was a big part of our identities and something that we bonded over pretty early. So, yeah, it took about a year of time to go through and choreograph and rehearse. A lot of it, the choreography, I guess, was easier because we tried to stay true to the original song's choreography as much as we could to kind of like pay homage to that. So it was like watching the videos, breaking down the moves, slowing them down 50%, being like, okay, what are they doing? Let's match that. And then once we did that part, it was just practicing it every single day and running through the routine, which was it was grueling, but it was always lots of fun because it's something that we enjoy doing.
Well, that's amazing though. And after the payoff, it's incredible. Oh my God, that's so
Thank
cool.
you.
And because I know you also had a Bollywood flash mob proposal to your wife. That's incredible. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we did, man. That's awesome that you checked that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that I had in my head for forever, for like my entire life. I was like, okay, because like I said, I grew up on Bollywood, and the whole concept of like spontaneously erupting into song and dance is inherent, in Bollywood. So I always thought to myself, like, all right, when I propose, this is how I'm gonna do it. And that was even before like the concept of flash mobs became a thing, right? It was just like this is what you would see in movies. People would spontaneously erupt into song and dance for certain moments. So the proposal was for me. I planned it out to be on the day of our 10-year anniversary of dating, and so
Wow.
at that point in time we had because we went to college in Boston. At that point in time, both of us were living in LA, so I had to like that a year of planning went into that too because my idea was okay, I'm gonna get all of our closest friends to be there. And at that point, they lived scattered around the world. Not just the country. People were coming from like different countries to be there, and so okay, give them enough advance notice to see if they could make it, and then whoever was going to make it choreograph a super simple dance that they could learn on Zoom type of a thing. And so I picked that specific song for a few reasons. Number one, it's from a movie that my favorite actor is in, my favorite Bollywood actor, and the song literally translates to "Will you marry me?" So it really just couldn't get any it couldn't get any more on point than that. So yeah, I strategically stealthily got her back to Boston by saying like, oh, since it's our 10th anniversary, we should take a trip to BU and relive all the nostalgia and stuff like that. And that's like not necessarily sus because we're big nostalgia people, so it's not like out of the ordinary. So I played my game airtight, and she really wasn't suspecting anything. So we got there, and I told her like, "Oh, I got this photographer, and we're gonna do a photo shoot in front of the dorm where we first met, which is Warren Towers, for our anniversary." And she was like, "Oh, amazing! That's gonna be perfect." And it was in front of Warren Towers that I had everyone waiting. So yeah, it went off without a hitch.
That's incredible. How romantic. What a beautiful surprise for her. And then you have that memory now too. Like that's beautiful. Like that's
Yeah, it was great, and it was so nice to see all of our friends and family like come through for us. The fact that the fact that they valued it so much that they wanted to be there for us and make that moment special was amazing.
That's fantastic. Oh my God. So you just said you went to school in Boston. So then did you study acting in college?
No, I didn't. I should have.
Oh.
I was a broadcast journalism major.
Oh, cool.
But the only the only reason for that was, I actually I wasn't really big on going to college. I'm glad that I did, but my parents were like, no, you need to fucking go to college. And so I only got into two schools. I got into BU and NYU. I don't even remember how many I applied to, but I got into two schools and I was like, okay. I ended up choosing BU to be like, okay, I can get away from home and have a different experience. And I'm glad I did it because that's where I met my wife, and that was the best thing to come from it. But also, I will say, so I to backtrack a little bit, I chose broadcast journalism because I thought it was going to be the easiest major. I was like, okay, if I have to do this, what's going to get me to coast through? That was a mistake. It turns out I don't think there are any easy majors, no matter what anybody tells you, unless maybe you're like a prodigy or something. But you're going to have to work at anything if you want to do well at it. But it ended up being like serendipitous because what I didn't know when I chose it was that it was actually going to teach me all the skills that I use in creating content now. Like that's through broadcast journalism as my major. That's how I learned how to use Final Cut Pro. When I was like 18, and Final Cut Pro is what I still use to edit everything I do, all the videos I make, all my music videos, all that type of stuff. So like those skills, editing together audio and video and just learning how to shoot stuff like from a basic level. All that was extremely, extremely helpful in my career going forward. So yeah, it totally wasn't a waste of time. But yeah, when I was in college, my only thing was like, okay, as soon as I get out of here, I'm gonna start acting. So I don't give a fuck about anything that I'm doing here right now.
Oh, that's too funny. Oh gosh. So did you move to LA right after college then?
Yes and no. So out of college, so I graduated early. I graduated about 2 years early.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so first thing I did was when I came back home to New York, I was trying to figure out how I was going to get out to LA and Hollywood and stuff like that. I started going to acting school in New York at Lee Strasberg, if you're familiar.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's in Greenwich Village. It's right by NYU.
Okay. Yes.
Um, but they also have a campus in LA. So I did the 1 year conservatory. So I did the first semester, quote unquote, in New York, and then I was like, all right, can I finish it in LA? So that was how I got to take my first trip to LA. I lived here for about 5 or 6 months, however long the classes went. And then, but then I ran out of money real quick. And so I had to move back. Like I was, when I first came out here, I was like, okay, dope. When I get out there, it's going to be a cinch. I'm going to, get some roles and I'm going to start making money and that's it. I'm there. But obviously, that's not the way things generally work. So I was out here, I got my feet wet. I got to know some stuff about how the industry works. But then I had to go back to New York. So I was there again. I was in New York for about another year before I was able to kind of save up enough to get back to California.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's
Yeah.
smart though to save up. Yeah. So tell me about, I understand your first acting gig was on Big Time Rush.
Yeah, acting gig might be a generous term for it. I was background, but that's correct. It was my first time on set, like in front of a camera on a real production. Absolutely, and that was during that first stint in LA during that when I was going to Strasbourg.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah. What's really funny about it too is like so before I came out here, right? I didn't know anything about the how does the industry work? Nothing. I knew everything from a fan's perspective, like any movie, TV show, whatever, and who was involved. I knew all that, but I didn't know the business process, even the logistical shooting process, and all this stuff. And so anyway, I when I got out here, I figured out enough to say, okay, you sign up for Actors Access and LA Casting. Boom, two big ones. And so submit for stuff and whatever. And so this one day I think I get an email first from someone that asks if from LA Casting and asks if I'd be interested in being on Big Time Rush, and it was a Rush casting. And I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. This is my moment to shine. I can't believe this. And then so they were like, are you free for a call? So I was like, yeah. So like I got on a call with this person. They explained that it was an episode where there's like some drama and they're trying to replace Big Time Rush, or there's like a bunch of hopeful boy band members that are going to do that, right? I think maybe they got into it with Gustavo or the whatever the case may be. And so I was like, oh sweet, yeah, this is right up my alley, perfect. Like, is there going to be you're sending a script or what? And they were like, no, don't, no, you don't no need to worry about all that. And I don't know, maybe they thought I was joking because maybe they assumed that I knew what I was talking about here, that it was just an extra role, but I didn't know that at all. I was like, oh shit, I'm going to be on this show, and probably when I get there, they're going to give me lines. I figured it wasn't going to be like lots of lines, but I was like, sweet, I have a part here. And it's going to be dope. So I that's when I get there, then it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever worked background before.
No, no.
So, you get there, you check in, and it's, kind of like they cattle call, like they just bring you all to this one holding area. You're like, cool, you guys are background. I was probably there with like 100 guys that were all in this scene, hopeful boy
Wow.
band members. And I was like, oh man, okay, I guess like am I just like a guy in the background, like just an extra, and which is what it was. And
Mhm.
so it was like this. I felt so stupid because the day before I told my friends and family, like, yo, I'm gonna be on Big Time Rush, motherfucker. Like, I just got out here. I just got out to LA. Look, the fortune is in my favor. And so yeah, but it was a cool experience because that was my first time being on a set and watching people shoot things for real, and
Mhm.
like hearing all these terms and people being like, okay, pictures up. And I was like, oh shit, what does that mean? And looking over all the scene we were in, all the main cast was there for it. So I got to kind of watch them do their thing. And in between takes, I did interact with them, even though that was, or I learned afterward, I guess that's supposedly frowned upon by a lot of people. But I mean, nobody said anything, and they were all very, very cool. And so I kind of learned a lot just by doing that. And when I came back to LA, I would end up doing a lot of background work to pay my bills. I did like an insane amount of background work and body doubling and stuff like that. But all those experiences, the novelty of it maybe wears off a little bit. Like the first time I was on set, even though it was like for Big Time Rush, it was a long day. I was hyped the whole time, even though it wasn't what I expected I was going to be doing. I was like, I'm on set for a Nickelodeon show. This is more than I could have even hoped to be. So I was really like living that experience. Obviously, you do that same thing again and again and again. You're like, man, this day is so fucking long. Because being an extra can be like harrowing. A lot of the day is just like doing nothing and just waiting for them to do shit, set up shots and stuff like that, and then you do your quick thing, and then that's it. But it's a lot of hours. But every time I was an extra on a new show or a new set, it was that same learning experience, just like really observing how the directors act and behave, how they're talking to the actors, and how they're blocking, how they're setting up shots. So yeah, hopefully I didn't ramble too much there, but that was my first experience on Big Time Rush. Yeah.
No, that's amazing though. And that is like invaluable experience because you're there in person, seeing how it all is made. That's really cool. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So even though it wasn't what you expected, still, yeah, that's fantastic though. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah, and then it was so funny because people would, everyone I told were like, "Yo, when's your episode coming out?" I was like, "Fuck, man, yeah, I don't know, don't worry about it,"
No, it's too funny. Oh God, God.
Yeah,
Was
and
it?
if you pause it just right, you can see me. I have taken screenshots.
Oh, nice. Was it the first season or?
No, I think they were
Mm.
at least a couple in because they were far enough in that I was excited about, like, because I knew what it was, right? So if it was
Oh,
if it was season one, I probably wouldn't have been that hype. So I think it was at least season two. Yeah.
oh, gotcha. Okay. That's really amazing though. Oh, wow. Because especially like people can spend like months, years trying to get like their first paid gig. And so the fact that you did it so quick, that's amazing though.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, listen, for sure. Exactly like
Mm.
you said, everything is perspective. Even though it wasn't like a big juicy role, the fact is, like, you got a paid gig immediately, and even in this town in LA, even vying for the spot of being an extra it's not guaranteed. It's not easy. Like Central Casting is one of the biggest companies that does that work, or that gets people that work. And so, I've gotten a lot of my work through Central Casting, but it's like being an actor in terms of like they'll post and say, hey, we need 100 people that fit XYZ demographic or look or whatever tomorrow, submit. And then you have thousands of people submitting for that. So like it's not guaranteed that you're going to be an extra in this thing, you know what I mean? So yeah, it is a micro accomplishment.
No, definitely. And obviously very, very competitive. So
Yeah.
yeah. hmm And obviously the whole thing with like AI, how that was a whole big thing, obviously with the strikes. That's,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah, yeah.
God, that's terrible. To like erase all that, you know? Oh
That
my
shit is
God.
crazy. That shit is crazy. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
nuts to think. Like I remember in the central casting like orientation that you take, they show you. I don't know if they still do this, but they would show you people who were extras through central casting before that are now famous. So I think they were like, here's like Bruce Willis in in the background of the scene, and here's like XYZ other famous actor, and you think to yourself like if now if we succumb to that AI deal, it's like, what if someone like Bruce Willis signed away his likeness just for being an extra, and then as soon as he becomes famous, now anyone, whoever he signed that to, can make Bruce Willis movies and not pay him a dime?
That's horrifying to think. I know there already was things. I think like Tom Hanks had to put out a statement saying this wasn't me for like some whatever they were trying to sell. It was some commercial or something. That's horrifying to think, honestly.
Yeah, it really is shaking up the game for sure.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Because also the whole thing with like even artists and like doing like hologram, like I don't know. That's like a whole other thing. Yeah, that's
I
crazy.
I agree. It definitely is taken away from the magic of what we do.
Yeah, that's no, no, we don't want any of that. Oh my God. Like
Facts.
yeah. Oh my God. But so I know you were also on a show. I love to hear about this show, Crazy Bitches. What a title. That's hilarious. So I understand it's like this horror comedy. You played
Yeah,
part. I'd love to hear about that.
sure.
Yeah.
I wish there was more to tell you about it.
Mm.
So essentially, it was a show slash. I think it might have had a movie or two in the series, but a friend of my manager was producing that, and that's how I got in there. But essentially, within the show, the characters on the show watch a soap opera. They're fans of the soap opera, and so I was a character on the soap opera that they watched. So it was a pretty funny day of filming, just doing like corny, cheesy soap opera lines that sounded like shit my mom used to watch when I was growing up.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's too funny. I always love shows within shows. That's hilarious. It's like a next level. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my God.
yeah,
That's too funny. But so I also know, of course, you were on the Fairly Odd Parents, Fairly Odder.
yes.
That's crazy that Paramount Plus just totally like erased that too. Like, wow.
I know. I don't. I wish I knew like the behind the scenes of what went down there, but like just yeah, immediately off network, immediately off streaming. I mean, yeah, who knows?
That's unfortunate because I know now they announced a new sequel series, like a new reboot, Fairly Odd Parents, New Wish.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wow.
Well, a good a friend of mine is voicing the main character on there.
Oh, amazing. Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, Ashley's right? Is that her name?
Ashley Crystal. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, very cool. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. But so
yeah,
tell me about being on Fairly Odd, or I know you were Jimmy Hip Hop. So what,
yeah.
like getting cast and like rehearsing, that kind of stuff.
For sure, for sure. So, I mean, that experience, top to bottom, was amazing. I have nothing but good things to say. So about the casting process, it was the fairly traditional, like my manager submitted me to the breakdown, and then they were like, oh yeah, we'd like to like him to audition. So this was during pandemic, so it was purely self tape. I can't say this for sure, but I'd like to think that a part of why I got cast was because I did my own thing with the audition and I just rapped the entirety of it. Like I rapped my slate, I rapped the lines, even the ones that weren't described that way, because I was like, oh, how am I not gonna get this fucking role? I am a rapper. You know what I mean? Like I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I am a rapper. I I'm such a Nickelodeon kid that I know the sensibilities of a character that's supposed to be on Nickelodeon, the over the top nature of it, and that kind of thing. So I was like, I can bring all that. This is was made for me. And so I did all that for the audition tape, and then submitted it, and then you just you play the waiting game, and then I got the role, which was it was my first like real like, hey, guest star, you're getting a solid credit on this thing, type of a deal. So it was a really exciting time for me. And I remember when my manager called me, he did this, he was like, man, I get to the phone. He's like, look, you win some, you lose some, and you got to just go on and fight another day. But this one, you won, you got the role. And I was like,
Nice.
fuck yeah, dude, yeah. And
Wow.
he knew that even though it was it was a small role, that it was one that was like super super important to me. I was super hype about it. So yeah, the shooting process uh, was fire. I think we rehearsed for 3 days, and then we shot on one day. And I have to say, so we shot it during I think we shot it in 2021, so it was still like the height of pandemic restrictions on set and stuff. And I mean, there still is, but not to the extent that it was. So like every, you got to put your mask on between takes and stuff, which was making like the job of the makeup artist difficult because they had to keep touching people up and stuff like that. But it was my first experience being on set as talent, right? Like being, getting on set and them saying, here's your dressing room with your name on it. And me being like, oh shit, this is great. So in between takes, I just get to hang out here in this room with the couch and the glamorous mirror with the lights around it. I couldn't stop taking pictures of it and sending it to people. Cause that's shit I've only seen on TV. That's what I was like, oh my God, everyone on set was incredibly welcoming and nice to me. RJ Hatanaka, who was like, one of the main stars in that show, when I got on set, he introduced himself almost immediately and was like, let me know if you need anything and or got questions and stuff like that. Leslie Margarita was in that episode. She was amazing. She was so warm. My co-stars in that scene, Garrett Clayton, Tara Strong, not to be confused with Tara Strong, Miles Anderson, and just getting to meet all those people was such an amazing experience. And I'm still cool with all of them to this day. Like, we stay in touch, and it was just like a really fun shared experience, and the feeling of, when we were blocking the scene, obviously it's all over the top, right? So Jimmy Hip Hop enters and through the fireplace, and they do like a little freeze frame. And when we were running that, blocking it, and I was, every time I did it, I was getting laughs like from the whole, the crew and the camera people and stuff like that. And that was a really nice feeling because, you go on there, and like I said, even though it was a small role, I still felt like a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, oh shit, I'm around like some real fucking actors right now that have done this before and have been doing this. And this is my first time, like doing this on their level with them. And how am I going to be? Everyone's going to be like, this fucking noob, get him out of here. All those things are like running through your head. And so the fact that everybody was so warm, the whole cast and crew, and the fact that, when I did my thing, it was received positively and I was getting the laughs, that made me feel so good. So yeah, I wish that Jimmy Hip Hop was in more episodes. I was patiently waiting, and I was hoping that if they got a season 2, that maybe they'd bring him back, because the rest of the pop stars were on like various other episodes, like where it was relevant. But yeah, Jimmy Hip Hop was just in the one. But should it ever come back, that'd be cool. And I mean, I think my favorite aspect of it is now I exist in the Fairly Odd Parents universe. That's a cool thing to be like, dope, man. If when people, that's like, existing in the MCU for a fan of Fairly Odd Parents. Like, all right, cool. And then whoever runs the Fairly Odd Parents Wikipedia, made a Jimmy Hip Hop page, and they put my picture there, and that made me pretty happy. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I had a good time.
That's incredible. Wow. That must be, yeah, feel so amazing. Like hearing everyone laugh. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And your episode, it's on YouTube actually still, like the full episode.
No
So
way. Okay.
yeah, I guess through Nickelodeon or maybe Paramount Plus, but yeah, it's on there. So
For free, or you gotta pay for it?
no, for free. The whole
Get out of
yeah,
here.
it's on there. So you're still, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
That's
That's
good.
that's what's up.
Yeah, so that was filmed all Paramount Studios, right?
No,
Oh,
they shot it at they shot it in Burbank. It
oh,
was
cool.
it. I forgot if this place is actually like if it's Nickelodeon Studios, but the whole building is decorated like Nickelodeon. I'm sure you've seen it. It's on like Alameda,
Oh, uh-huh.
and there's always like a bunch of Nickelodeon characters on the side of the building.
It's like Olive Avenue, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's very
Yes,
very
okay.
close to like Chick-fil-A, I think, and um, yeah.
Oh, really cool. Because I know that's their like animation studio too now, I believe. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and that was another really cool part. I gotta say, like when you walk in, so I think at the same time they were shooting like Henry Danger there, and maybe some other stuff. But just like being in the building, like you walk in and there's big ass pictures of like Keenan and Kel and like all
Uh,
that people and stuff. So I was like, oh man, like I'm really here. Like I'm at this spot where this is serious. Like this is for real. Like there's a fucking picture of Kel on the wall. because like this is the same network. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
a surreal feeling.
I love that. Oh, that's amazing. I know, and because they just had recently Good Burger too, of course, which was so
Yeah,
fun. Yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, I'd love to get into your rapping career, but I'd love to hear for you growing up, Ten. What were some of your like favorite rappers that inspired you?
great question. Um, so my favorite rapper of all time is Eminem. You know,
Nice.
that's without a doubt. But I grew up on a lot even before Eminem. So growing up in Queens at that time was like a sort of a renaissance period for New York hip hop, or like maybe the start of the what might some might consider the golden age. Me being part of that. So like I, I really was started on Run DMC and LL Cool J by my uncle and my older cousins that used to listen to that stuff because my grandparents, they're immigrants from Guyana. They, to them, they were like, this music has swearing in it and it's violent. Like we don't want you to listen to it. So it was a very secretive thing for me. But my older cousins and my uncles that were younger, so closer in age to me, super into it. Like growing up in Queens, it, it just like you can't escape the culture, right? So everybody was very much a part of that. So started off on like Run DMC and LL Cool J, Mobb Deep, Biggie Smalls, Wu Tang, Nas, Jay Z, all that stuff. And then as I got a little bit older, I would say when 50 Cent came out, 50 Cent and G-Unit, that was probably the biggest for me. Right. I would say right after Eminem is 50 and G-Unit in terms of what I listen to the most, what I have listened to the most, and what had the biggest impact on me culturally. Especially growing up in Jamaica, Queens, like that's the origins of 50 Cent and G-Unit. So it was a very much like hometown hero thing for me to be very like proud of the cultural impact that he was having and that G-Unit was having. I mean, at that point in time, during that run, let's call it from 2003 to maybe 08, 09, when it was just back to back to back hits and they couldn't miss kind of a thing. There was no competition, barely competition for them. The way that the culture inspired the whole world was crazy. It was like taking Queens and making it everybody wanted to do that. They wanted to dress like 50 Cent and talk like him and walk like him. And so it was, yeah, I mean, it was definitely a cool experience being someone that was from there and just looking like looking at like, oh man, this is so dope. Like the way that our culture has been brought to the whole world. So yeah, but I mean, Ludacris is also in my top rappers. I'm a big Ludacris fan. For me, for the most part, I'm a guy that's very focused on the lyricism, the metaphors, the wordplay. Not that I, don't listen to stuff that is not that, but for me, like when I'm listening to music for my own pleasure and I'm just like being, listening to it for myself, I'm gonna put on shit that's like dense, to analyze the lyrics, which is why Eminem is my favorite because he gets, that's pretty much all he does. You listen to an Eminem track a couple times in a row, and each time you might hear something that you're like, oh fuck, I totally missed that wordplay, I totally missed that setup. So yeah,
That's fantastic. Do you have a favorite song from Eminem?
great question. I think so for all time, I think the song that has the most like nostalgic value to me, that like probably holds the most special place in my heart, is Real Slim Shady.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
because, I can vividly remember being in fifth grade, listen when that song came out, watching the making of the video on MTV, like when it was an announcement, and then having to dub it off my friends like onto a cassette tape. Because like at that time, my parents wouldn't let me go buy the single or buy the album, so I had to dub it onto a cassette tape. I think that same year is when we got a computer that had a CD burner. So then I
Oh,
took
wow.
the album from my friend and then just copied the CD. And I used to listen to that shit just over and over again. I was like this because it was Eminem has this, he's so what do you call it, like not diverse is not the word I'm looking for, but yeah, like he's very diverse in the types of tracks he could do. And so when he's being Slim Shady, he has this amazing comedy aspect to it, right? So like Real Slim Shady has not only, of course, like as a kid, you're listening to all this stuff that you probably shouldn't be listening to, which is part of the appeal of it, right? You're like, oh man, I'm being cool right now because my parents would be mad if they knew I was listening to this. But just hearing like the flows, the wordplay, and then just like laughing your ass off. Like, oh man, that line was so funny. And then especially when you get to watch it with the video, he's a dude that always put like a lot of dope comedy into his videos or when he did stuff like that. So yeah, I think maybe of all time, real Slim Shady. But Rap God is one of my all time favorites. Survival, Till I Collapse is my main Jim Jam. Till I Collapse and Cinderella Man are my main Jim Jams, and closely following Real Slim Shady is Without Me for the nostalgic value.
Oh, classic. Oh, that's
Yeah,
yes. I love that too. Oh, it's great. So for you specifically, I'd love to hear like basically how you create your raps. Do you start just with lyrics, a beat? I'd love to hear about that.
sure. Great question. So there's a few different ways I approach it. So I'd say first and foremost, throughout the day, like throughout daily life, just existing, there's a part of my mind that's always freestyling that I don't turn off, which is like half the time or more than half the time can be pure gibberish. But I'm always thinking of things in a lyrical way because I just get so much satisfaction when like a setup works out and I'm like, oh man, that's so dope. So throughout the day when I have ideas, random ideas, I write them down and I just keep a log of like a line. Sometimes it's just a couple of words. Sometimes it's things that I thought, things that I found that rhymed and they don't make any sense together yet. So, being a lyricist, one of the things that I take pride in is being able to do multi-syllable word schemes, right? So it's not just going to be cat, hat, and bat. I might rhyme 5, 6, 7 syllables at a time for 10 to 12 bars, right? So that if you're listening for that, then you can appreciate that, oh man, this guy just did that. That's crazy. So I'll in my head just randomly think of like, oh fuck, this sentence rhymes with this combination of words and write them down. They don't make sense together right now, but at a certain point, I will make them make sense together. So I have this rhyme book that I keep. I also write in it like anytime I'm consuming any form of media, like TV, movies, other music, video games, like whatever the case may be. Those things are inspiring me because like my music is full of references, pop culture references. And so that's like one of the biggest sources for me of making cool things. Cause that's what I loved listening to when I was growing up, right? When people would reference something and you'd be like, oh yeah, I know that thing. That's a cool analogy. That's a cool metaphor. So, like even like simple things, if like Eminem would be like, I'm hard as Kanar, the little boy who shot Omar in The Wire, you're like, oh yeah, I watched The Wire. Damn, that kid is fucking hard. That's dope. So, things like that. So I'll write those down. I'll be like, oh, I should make an analogy to Walter White. That would be cool. What would be cool ways to do that? I should make an analogy to when this incident happened on this show. I should make an analogy to this superhero, doing this, that kind of a thing. So I keep all those things in my rhyme book. The next aspect of it is, like you said, finding beats. So back in the day, I used to spend a lot of time just perusing the internet for beats, like looking at up and coming producers on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on BeatStars, and seeing what people were putting out there. Whenever I found a beat that was like, this is dope, I cop that beat, either, purchase it, lease it, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, now that I have the beat, I got to listen to it and see what flows I want to use. The way that I decide the flows is usually gibberish. I'll be like, I'm just rapping to see how many syllables go with the bars or go with the drum line. And how can I switch it up so I don't have the same flow for the whole time? Because I like to make it, I like to make it an experience, a listening experience. I don't want it to be monotonous. And so once I figured that out, I'm like, okay, you have 16 bars here. The first 4 bars can be 12 syllables. The next 4 bars can be, something like that. Then I'm looking at my rhyme book and I'm like, okay, what is going in this song? Is there a theme for this song? Is there a specific theme for this song? Boom. Okay. So let's say, I'll use for an example, a song that I just finished up for a project that I'm about to drop. So the song is called The Beast Inside. And so I'm like, okay, the sample that you use for the beat is spooky. So I'm going to make this a spooky themed track. Boom. Okay. Look at all the cool spooky stuff that you've written down in your rhyme book. Let's see if we can put that shit together. And okay, can I make in 3 verses of 16 bars each, can I make the whole thing about just all references to horror tropes, and different scary things, and make it come together in a clever way. So now that I know what the flow is, now I'll start making bending the words to fit that. And
Mm.
so obviously not every, sometimes no matter how hard you try, like a certain line is just not going to fit in a certain song and you just have to leave it for another song. Um, these days, what I as a when I was younger, I would try and find producers that had already made beats. For the most part now, instead of doing that, I will work with someone directly to say, here's the beat that's in my head, can you make it? So a lot of the tracks that I've put out in the last couple of years, my boy Adam has produced them, Adam Eugenio, and he's somebody I met actually by doing a photo shoot with his wife when they had just moved to LA and they were starting up like a photography business. And then I met him there, and he was like, "Oh, I do beats," and I was like, "Let me hear some stuff." Thought it was dope, and then so yeah, we just got on the same wavelength where I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna describe to you the beat that's in my head. Can you make it?" And he's always pretty amazing about doing that. So like that's the way I prefer to do it now. And then like I said, get your syllables in line for like the flow, figure out the flows, and then just make the words match. And sometimes the hardest part of it can be figuring out that first line in the song, because I'm like, okay, it's just like anything like on social media or whatever, like you want to catch somebody's attention really quickly. How is someone going to keep listening to your song if the beginning of it wasn't something dope, or if the beginning of it was something boring? Are they just going to press the skip button? So coming up with that first bar is, or that first at least scheme, is always like the most difficult part of like, what one do I start with? And usually as soon as I do that, the rest of it will flow. And when I get writer's block, which I do fairly frequently, I find that the way to get around it for me is to continue to consume as much media as possible. So, a lot of people will, people that are not creative or even with different processes will view that as a waste of time. Like you're procrastinating. You're not doing the work. But it's true that it's not that way. For me, I really am, okay, boom, I'll just throw on one of my favorite shows. I'll just throw on Entourage or a regular show or Everybody Loves Raymond, watch it for a little bit and observe and figure out something in there that's clever to reference, right? Like, oh shit, that's a dope moment. Okay, even the line that this character just said, that's a sick line. I'm gonna rework that line and put it in this song. So yeah, that's a long-winded version of my process.
I really love hearing about all that. That's really, really fascinating to me. And you're absolutely right that like if you're stuck, it does help to just kind of dive into things that you love and it sparks your inspiration, definitely. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic that you do that. Yeah, that's so cool. And so I checked out a bunch of your stuff. So I loved the Millennial Anthem. That's so
Hey,
much
thank you.
nostalgic. Fantastic. And that one's great too, because you got like that great lyric video and then like all the images too, like to go along with it. That's so cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have to say, I think that's been my most popular song to date.
Hmm.
Just like with the stats, that one really hit it. It went viral on almost every social platform: TikTok, Facebook,
Nice.
Instagram, and yeah. And I've just gotten so much positive feedback about that one. People will always quote lines from there to me and stuff like that.
That's so good. Oh my God. And then I also really liked you had Diamond in the Rough. That's really cool. Big
Yeah, thank you.
ideas, quarantine bars. Yeah, really cool. So do you have a favorite? Like I'm sure obviously you love them all, but like do you have a favorite one that you've written to date and put out there?
Yes. Okay. So I'll preface with my favorite track or tracks are probably on the project that's going to be coming out shortly,
Nice.
either next month or April, depending on how quickly I can get these things mastered. But from what's out there right now, I think Millennials Anthem has to be my favorite one, and I think a large part of that it was because the reason that song came to be was this. It all
Mhm.
started from a TikTok trend in 2020. The Lean Like a Cholo instrumental was floating around TikTok, but the trend was for people to I think someone started, I don't know if this was the first one, but one of the first ones I saw was someone being like, this is the white girl anthem, or like this is the like Gen Z anthem. And they would just like comedically say things about like whatever group they were representing, right? And like part of it too was that like all the people doing it were not rappers, so it was like funny that they were also bad at the rap part. So when I saw that, I was like, oh dope. I'm at that time, like being a millennial on TikTok was like it was like seen as cringe and by a lot of people, right? And there wasn't that many millennials on there yet as there are now. And so I was like, I'm gonna make the millennials on TikTok anthem, and I'm gonna rap it, like it's gonna be dope. So I did that, and when I put that shit out, that video went super viral. And so many people were lip syncing it. And it was just like a 1 minute freestyle. It was not anything I could monetize because I didn't own the beat, right? It was the Lean Like a
Right.
Cholo beat. So it was just a freestyle, which a lot of my freestyles go viral, and it's cool, but it sucks that you can't monetize it. So when a lot of people were commenting like, yo, you need to make this a full song, bro. We need an entire song. So I was like, fuck yeah. I'm gonna make my, hit up Adam. Yo, Adam, here's the beat that I have in mind. Make that shit. And, I wanted something upbeat that was, lighthearted, because it's a lighthearted song. It's just about remembering your, the happier times. And so as soon as I got the beat ready, I just, laid into it. I mean, you heard it. So it's like just 3 verses of pure nostalgia. And the whole, the whole point is to just make people remember, those kind of happier times when, stuff that we used to do and stuff that we used to watch, stuff that we used to enjoy. And yeah, I mean, when I put that out, part of the reason it's my favorite is because I had so much fun making it. Like, I had so much fun reveling in that nostalgia, because that's something that I love to do. And I had so much fun, like, knowing when I was writing it that there were people that it was gonna make happy, right?
Mhm.
Because I people loved that little freestyle so much that I didn't expect to take off that way, because it was something that maybe seems so niche. Or there's a lot of people that would literally just be like, well, that's straight up corny, right? You have these super serious raps and, like, maybe aggressive and this and that lyrics, and now you made this song about, like, millennials anthem, just like shit when you were a kid, whatever. But that's me. I have, I will rap about anything. I just like the aspect of the rap, right? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I you can give me any topic. One of my first viral videos was a purely Star Wars rap. Like, that was it. I was just rapping about Star Wars. It was called Bar Wars, and I think that was my first ever viral rap. And so when I was making that millennials anthem, like I said, I knew that it was going to make so many people happy. I knew people were going to relate to it. And then after that, the response that it got, not only did I get it from the millennial audience that I expected, but it also was like Kel Mitchell commented on it and was like, yo, this
Wow.
is dope. Melissa Joan Hart started following me on TikTok after that, because I dropped a line in there that we used to have a crush on Melissa Joan Hart or whatever. And so I was like, this is crazy. Like, the fact that some people that I referenced on there are acknowledging this and thinking that is dope, like, that's a pretty serious stamp for me, like Melissa Joan Hart, like, that's crazy.
Wow.
So yeah, there were actually quite a few other folks like that ended up, sharing it or commenting on it in some way. So yeah, so for that reason, it's my favorite, and it's something that's just like, yeah, I just feel like it makes me happy and it makes people happy.
That's beautiful. That's incredible. I know I do see it as like a love letter to the 90s and like something we
Exactly.
loved as kids. I love like the Hey Arnold reference. So many great references in there. I love
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Again, everyone go check that out if you haven't. Incredible. So since you've like done a lot of viral videos, Ten, what would you say is like the key to like something? And I think also part of it, like making something viral, is not intending for it to be. It's just kind of coming from a place of passion. What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had the real answer to it, because then I would I
Mm.
would I would do it every time. Um,
Right, fair enough.
yeah, but I mean, I will say, I would just echo what you just said. I think the main thing about being a creator that's putting out anything on social media is being authentic and
Mhm.
doing stuff that you love, that you would want to see. I think that if you're chasing the, like, hey, what's trending and what's popular right now, let me fit into that, that can get you a lot of views and popularity and virality, quote unquote. But it's virality is fickle, because there's got to be substance to you for an audience to actually like you and follow along. And so, it's stuff that I'll tell people or show people is like, I've done stupid little videos that have gotten me 20 million views, and
Mhm.
I'm like, oh shit, I wish that I wish that a rap video I put out got 20 million views. At this point, some have, but, like, previously, and I was like, or the amount that I had to work for this music video to get 20 million views, not even close to, you know what I mean? Like, the stupid little video I put out that got that amount of views. And so, you'll put out this video, it'll be viral, and people you'll get followers from it and stuff like that. But if it's you'll find that, like, okay, I followed this. If it's someone that's just like, I followed this guy because I
Mhm.
thought this dumb little skit was funny, but I don't necessarily care about anything else that he does. And in fact, there's people that will I've experienced it before, where, like, people follow me, and then for one thing, because I do so many different things, and I'll post a video, like, post a freestyle video, overwhelmingly positive comments, and then you have the one guy that's just like, yo, when did this fucking guy become a rapper? I thought he just does skits or whatever, like stay in your lane. And I'm like, motherfucker, I've been a rapper. You know what I mean? Like just because you only saw the one video. But in any case, yeah, I think virality is fickle. And I think that you'll get much more value out of chasing a dedicated audience that likes an engaged audience that likes you for you and so that they'll follow along with what you do. And it's way better to have 1,000 followers if each of those 1,000 people genuinely loves you, your brand, and your creativity, versus 20 million followers that just followed you off of a moment that don't necessarily care about you, if that makes sense.
Totally. That's spot on. I absolutely agree with all that. Yeah. Because again, it's like what you just said about authenticity, things that you love, things that bring you joy. And yeah. And like, I'm sorry, but like, screw the haters. Like, it's like, you do you, you know?
Totally, totally. And that's something that I've I don't want to say I've learned to deal with. I'm still learning to deal with it. Because it's it's nuts, man. You'll see on the internet that and this could be a whole separate other podcast, but like you'll just see on the internet like even the most mundane post that doesn't have anything to do with something that might trigger someone or make someone mad, it will in some fashion. And then you're just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what is going on in your life that you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like I mean, just to give you a quick example, not that you asked this question, but
No, please.
one of my popular formats of videos is that started last year or perhaps the year before is showing old toys that I found at my parents' house, right?
Oh,
and
cool.
so I'll pop into my room or like my parents' garage or basement where they have stuff stored, and my parents have been amazing enough to keep that stuff for me, right, in my childhood home. And so me being like, oh yeah, look, I haven't seen these toys in 20 years, and I'm just showing the toys, I'll show the toy and maybe share a memory about it or an anecdote or whatever. And it's literally just that. And I'm like, okay, sweet. Those videos have done very well because it mostly appeals to people who want to revel in the nostalgia too. But there's people on there who will be, well, first of all, one of the leading comments is like, well, he's lying. These aren't his. He clearly bought them and he's just pretending.
Okay.
And I'm like, because my thing is like, what would be one's motivation for that? Because like at the end of the day in the video, I'm just showing you toys and talking about them. Whether they're mine or I bought them doesn't change the value of the video. So if I bought them, I would just tell you I bought them, as indeed I have for videos where I did buy them. Like there's, one that I had was very popular was I lost my McNugget buddies, my original ones, and my wife, she bought them all for me for my birthday. And I show them, and yeah, and I say very clearly, like, she bought these off eBay. Like, I don't have a reason to lie about it.
Yeah.
And that comment makes me so mad, not less so because they're accusing me of being a liar, but more so is because it actually discounts the amount of sacrifices my parents made to get me those things. Right? Like growing up, like we were not rich, we were not wealthy, we did not have a lot, like we were struggling. But the reason I had toys that I wanted was because my parents made a lot of sacrifices in their own lives to get me those things, to try and make sure that I didn't feel left out and that I did feel like the other kids that had stuff. And so that's like, you watch a 30-second video and you don't know anything about this person's life or background, and you just make a bunch of assumptions, that kind of thing. But it's interesting. I recently read, I'm going to put it much more crudely than they did, but they were talking about how if the comment makes you mad or someone saying something makes you mad, it's triggering some sort of trauma in you that hasn't healed yet. And
Makes
so,
sense.
yeah, while that may not be universally true, maybe when you think about it, I'm like, oh shit, it does. Like one time, I had a video that did really well. It was just me sharing a story about when Harry Potter 7 came out. And so long story short, in the story, my friend, he attempts to spoil it for me. I got really mad about it because I'm a big Harry Potter fan. So I socked him in the face, and I had told him before, like, I will punch you in the face if you spoil this for me. And then he tried to, so then I did. And so it was like a funny story. Getting punched in the face was not the main point of the story. It was like one little point in the whole story. But this guy commented, like, you can tell this guy's never thrown a punch in his life. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. I mean, I grew up, I'm a martial artist. I perhaps throw punches every single day of my life, but the thing is, when I'm like, okay, why do I care that he said that? Right. And I'm like, that goes back to me being bullied as a kid and having to prove to everyone that I was a tough guy, having to walk around and let everybody know, like, hey, I'm a fucking tough guy. Don't play with me. And that's probably why it triggered me. I was like, this fucking guy, I'm fighting every urge to be like, listen, motherfucker, like, you don't know the first thing about me. I could knock your ass out, whatever. And I'm like, that is so pointless. Who fucking cares about this guy and what he thinks? He can carry on the rest of his life thinking that you don't know how to throw a punch. It shouldn't affect you at
Right.
all. So yeah, like you just said before, very eloquently, fuck the haters. Doesn't matter.
Honestly, yeah. I appreciate you sharing that because that's kind of like, people with their own insecurities, usually that's what it is. Like they're projecting their own BS and whatever. There's so much obviously toxicity. Like as much as there's all this wonderful stuff, like sharing this joy, for example, but
Yeah,
then like people are gonna like find a way to hate it. Like it's terrible. It's
yeah,
sad, really. It's
extremely sad.
like the simplest things, like just don't like comment miserable things on, like just go, it's just like whatever, but that's not gonna stop them.
Right.
Whatever. So you take the bad with the good, more or less, obviously. That's how it is in life.
Exactly. And I made a conscious decision because I actually found myself, last year, for example, right, is when I really started posting a lot on Facebook again, because when they introduced Reels, and there were videos where I was getting thousands and thousands of comments, and if they're overwhelmingly positive, I try to respond to everyone. I love to do that, but sometimes you can't, and so like I'll just go through and I'll heart it, or I'll just maybe like react to it, but I
Mm,
don't necessarily comment back if I'm just going through and surfing comments if there's a
mhm.
lot. And so you'd see people be like, "Oh, this is so cool, this," and say nice things. And then I would be like, the one person that wrote something negative, I'd write something back, and I'd be like, you don't, whatever, whatever, whatever. And then I thought to myself after a couple times, I was like, hang on, why spend your time talking to the person that wrote something mean versus spending your time talking to the person that wrote something nice? Like you should, if you have any time to spare, it should not be for this person that wrote something mean. You should just
Yeah,
delete that person and block them. They have no value in what you're doing. You should spend more time cultivating, because like that person, you can never turn them into a fan. They've already made up their mind. There's no winning the argument with a troll on the internet. They've made up their mind. They have an
right.
opinion about you based on assumptions they formed. They're
Mhm.
not being converted into a fan. There's no point in engaging in that discourse. So I made a conscious effort of like, yeah, you know what? When you see those things, just fucking delete it, block that person so you don't have to deal with them again, and carry on talking to the people who are being nice to you.
Totally. Well said, because yeah, it's like not putting your energy into it. It's just like it's not worth it. It's so true.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Oh my God. But so, to get back to more things bringing us joy, I'd love to hear more about your podcast, All Grown Up Psych. So
Yeah.
fantastic. So I've checked out a bunch of your episodes, like with Jim Jenkins and Elisa Reyes, Gray Delisle, Carlos Alazraki, etc. You had so many awesome guests, Phil Rosenthal.
Yeah.
And you asked such like really in-depth, really interesting questions. And like I've learned things about these people that I wouldn't have otherwise known. So that's fantastic too. I got to give you props for that.
Thank
So
you.
tell me about like when you first started this podcast and everything.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, the reason the podcast started was due to popular demand from overwhelmingly my audience on Facebook. Because on Facebook I post perhaps more nostalgic content than I do elsewhere. And so I had developed an audience that was really big into saying like, hey, you unlocked a memory that I didn't know I had, and XYZ. And so it was when I started posting a lot of that, and I would be, it would just be me talking about stuff. People would be like, dude, you should have a podcast. You should have a podcast. Like, we want the podcast. And so, because so many people were saying it, that really inspired me to want to do it. And then I was like, okay, what's the format going to be? Like, what am I going to do? And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get people that were significant for pop culture for us, like, and people that are super famous, and people that maybe people haven't, that other folks haven't thought about in a while. Maybe they were part of something that was big in childhood, but you don't necessarily, it was part of that unlocked memory type of a deal, right? You didn't necessarily, you don't think about them day to day now, perhaps, and hear from them and hear about their anecdotes on their experiences, working on those things that we loved. So yeah, so I started it because of the popular demand, and then I just started reaching out to people, and sliding in DMs. And people would be surprised how often that works. Not obviously, not every single time, but there's a lot of times when you approach somebody genuinely and just be, hey, this is who I am and this is what I do. I'm doing this podcast. I would love to have you as a guest and talk to you about XYZ. Just be upfront about everything. And a lot of times people will respond. And now, the good thing is, because I was able to get so many dope guests on, like you said, now I have the, people can easily look and see, okay, this is a legitimate thing. And I there's value for me of being on this because other people have been on it, that kind of a thing. So yeah, I have to say it's been one of the most fun ventures of my life. Not just because of like the satisfaction I get from doing it, but part of that is getting to know your childhood heroes, right?
Mhm.
Like getting someone to be, it's such a great way to be like, hey, hey, dude, that I grew up loving your thing. How can I force you to talk to me for an hour? Right?
Right,
How can
right.
I force you to give me the time of day, type of a deal, and get to
Mhm.
know me? And so it's that it's the podcast, and that was a fun little side effect of it. But what's been really nice is the positive response from not just the audience but also from the guests. Like, I mean, like you just mentioned, what you said was really nice, about my in-depth questions. And
Yeah.
whenever a guest says that to me, it makes me feel so good because I'm like, okay, I didn't cool, this person enjoyed their time here. I didn't waste their time. This was a valuable experience for them. And it's always dope when people are like, oh man, I haven't heard about that in a long time, or like, holy shit, you just unlocked a memory for me. Those moments are always really cool. So yeah, I mean, I love it, and I plan to continue until as long as people listen to it. I'll keep doing it. You know what I mean? I love it. Which, by the way, I did notice that your podcast has been super long running, so props on that for the longevity.
Thank you. I know, yeah, I started in September 2018. I'm like, how has it been over going on 6 years now? It's kind of wild.
That is crazy. Yeah.
I'm Yeah, because apparently the majority of podcasts don't go past their seventh episode. I was like, what an interesting.
100%, 100%. I know a
Yeah.
million and one people that will have cool ideas and start up a podcast, but then they kind of they drop out. So your consistency is inspirational.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Because I did used to be weekly. Now I'm more so bi-weekly. Sometimes I'm weekly. It depends. I don't know. Because now I'm having, fortunately, more guests, which is wonderful. And so
Yeah.
I'm very happy we were able to connect too.
Yeah.
And so in terms of your podcast, do you have, again, like generally speaking, do you have one like your proudest stuff, or one that you're like, oh, this is like, the epitome of my podcast?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I'll preface by saying I like them all equally, and I
Yeah.
mean that, because everyone was very special and giving me their time and stuff like that. But I'll give you just a few anecdotes about ones that were, um, you know, the Phil Rosenthal episode was super special to me. I got to film that at his house, which was really cool. And if people listen to that episode, they'll hear it too. But the reason I got to know Phil Rosenthal was through a contest that I won. I did a rap as an advertisement for Somebody Feed Phil. I
Hmm.
think when they were doing maybe their first season, when Netflix had picked that show up. And he posted on Instagram saying, like, whoever does the most creative ad for this, I'm taking them out to dinner in Beverly Hills. And I was like, oh my god, I got to get this, because Everybody Loves Raymond is one of my favorite shows of all time. If not my favorite sitcom of all time. Like, I fucking love that show. And so that was back in like 2017 or 18, and I won that. And then he took me out to dinner, and it was this surreal experience, because it's like, holy shit, like I'm I'm having dinner in Beverly Hills with Phil Rosenthal. As a kid watching Raymond, I could never have imagined that that would be a thing that would happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's really like the stuff of dreams for me. So, um, and it was cool that it wasn't just that experience, that we stayed in touch. Like, when he was like, "Oh, dude, you're dope," and I like being your friend. Like, he was serious. Like, we've stayed in touch. And when I reached out to him, like, hey man, I'm starting this podcast. Can I get you as a guest? Boom, yeah, come to the house, let's record. I'm like, holy shit, man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that episode was dope because of the relationship that I developed with Phil. He's such a warm, amazing person. And I got to sit down and ask him a bunch of Raymond questions that I had never talked to him about before. It was like the perfect opportunity to do that and hear some of his cool insights. So that one was really special. The Jim Jenkins episode, I love re-listening to that one, which probably sounds narcissistic, but I listened to that episode a lot because it was the first episode I ever recorded. Um,
Oh, cool.
it was, yeah, and he just made me feel so good with the way that he was saying that he was impressed by what I was doing. And I can feel it now when I think about it. But I was just like sitting in the same spot, and him telling me like what him taking notes while I was saying stuff. Like I was blown away. Like him saying like, wow, that's a great idea. That's a great point about those characters. And writing things down. I was like, holy shit! Like the fact that the creator of this show that I grew up loving so much, I mean, loving Doug, thinks that things that I think about the narrative and the characters are worth, like the idea is dope. Like that's crazy. And I was like, that really encouraged, I'm also writing a few projects myself at the moment, and it really encouraged me to be like, okay, if he said you got some dope ideas, then that means that you probably do. So yeah, he was just so warm about it, and the fact that we got to go so in depth about a lot of Doug characters and stuff like that, like that podcast was mostly laser focused on Doug. Obviously, he's done other things, and we talked about those, but we were mostly talking about Doug. And it brought me back to a really cool point in my life when Doug and Rugrats, I used to stay up to watch them when they were back to back and stuff like that, new episodes. So yeah, that one, and the Swampy Marsh episode, that one was very, very significant to me too. Similar to the episode with Phil, Swampy, I think when I first moved to Los Angeles, or like early in my time in Los Angeles, was one of the first people to like give me the time of day, in terms of like, he was part of an industry that I so badly wanted to be a part of, and figuring out, how to navigate it, how to find my way in. And he came to talk to a class at UCLA that I became aware of. So I just went and I sat in, and I stayed after to talk to him. And he wasn't in a rush. This was late too. It was probably like 8 p.m. And he stayed back in that classroom, and he talked to me, and me telling him like, yeah, I want to do this, and I want to do that. And I don't even know how to start. And he was like, cool, man, here's my number. If you need advice, let me know, hit me up. And I was like, holy shit, man. I was a big fan of his work. And I had, that time you're talking like peak Phineas and Ferb time, and I was like, for him to be so generous and genuine to say like, hey guy that I just met, I think that you're a nice dude, and I think that you're motivated, and you're trying to do the right thing and trying to do something cool. If I can help you out, I can. That's super real, especially after, Los Angeles is full of phonies, as I'm sure you know, and the industry is full of phonies, as I'm sure you know. So the fact that he was exactly what I thought that he was, like in real life. And then so I did. I hit him up, and I would say, hey man, what do you think about this? I was working on this. What do you think about this? And he would always hit me back, and we would talk, and he would give me advice and stuff. And then I would see him at events. We would, doing stuff and whatever. And so, yeah, it was just the fact that we got to do that podcast. And, at the end of it, he was like, for him saying like, oh, it's been really cool to watch your journey since I've met you 10 years ago. And, you're doing a lot of the stuff that you were talking about at that point in time. It's cool just to think that somebody like that remembers you. You know what I mean? It's a really nice feeling. So yeah, those are definitely some special moments from the podcast that I will always hold near and dear.
I know, that's amazing, and how invaluable it is to have a wonderful mentor like that. That's incredible. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Wow. This time has flown by, but so as we're wrapping up, so I'd love to do a quick like rapid fire. So I know on
Yeah.
your podcast, you like to ask what's one thing you like to bring back from the 90s. But so in that vein, I'd love to ask you about like favorite 90s stuff, and just
Let's do
whatever
it.
whatever pops into your head. Here we go. So what was your favorite cereal?
Apple Jacks.
Oh, interesting. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your favorite outdoor game? Like red light, green light, tag, that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah. Okay, so freeze tag for sure, freeze tag.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But also handball, like wall ball.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's fun. Oh, that's
Yeah.
very cool. Okay, what about favorite video game?
Such a good question. I was heavy on. Okay, so can I give you per system maybe?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so because NES was my first system that my
Nice.
dad bought for me. On that system, I think my two favorites were Mario Brothers 3 and Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project. I might say I edged toward Ninja Turtles 3 because I just have special memories playing that with my dad, and realizing later in life that him like playing that game with me, like when I was little, I didn't realize that, oh shit, like I was little and I was like, oh, of course my dad is good. Like he's my dad. Like he can do anything. And I realized later, like he didn't fucking grow up with video games. Like he had to learn that to play with me. And
Mhm.
that made the memory even more special that like he took that time to figure it out to really be a part of like
Oh,
of playing that with me. And so definitely Ninja Turtles 3. Then
mhm.
I had Sega Genesis. I loved Sonic 2. That was my favorite on
Classic.
Sega Genesis.
Mhm.
An uncle bought that for me. And an N64. Overall, it's got to be Mario 64.
Oh,
Closely followed by GoldenEye, but Mario 64, you know, just the magic of that, you know, turning your fucking N64 on and popping up. It's a me, Mario. You know what I mean? Like you just can't beat it. So
again, talk about like taking me back. Yes, hands
yeah,
up.
yeah, that
You
you know
know.
that shit is amazing, and it's so funny that you mentioned video games because even
Mm.
now, like you know, I haven't bought a new system in a long time because I don't have the time anymore, unfortunately. But like my sister has a Switch, you know, and other people I know will have whatever it is, and if I get to play with them, like if I go on my sister's Switch, I will just download old games. It's like you're on the Switch, but like I'm not playing like whatever's new. I'm just like downloading Mario 64 to play on the Switch, just because it takes me back to like a a happy time. And even that stuff is like gives me stuff to reference for my music, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then I after that I had an Xbox. I loved Halo was my favorite game on Xbox.
Nice.
And then in high school I had a Wii, and the my favorite game on Wii was probably whatever the Mario game was for Wii. If it was like, I think it might have been Super Mario Bros. Deluxe.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's awesome too. I think the newer one was it like Super Mario Galaxy or something.
Galaxy was perhaps GameCube, which I didn't have. I think the new one is Wonder, Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
Oh, okay. Wonder. That's right. Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the
And
elephant suit. I got my sister that for Christmas,
yes.
so I played a little bit. It's pretty dope.
Oh, cool. I know that's also the first one where it's not Charles Martinet, right, as Mario anymore. I think it's like
Y-
a new voice actor.
yes, I think
Yeah.
you're correct. I think you're correct, which is sad, man. That was the end of an era.
Literally, I know, end of an era. Yeah, it's so true. But then I know he's now like a Mario ambassador. He still does cons and things like that. So,
Yeah, that's
so
the
that's really,
legend.
yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so favorite 90s TV show. We kind of touched on this, but
Oh my God, that's such a hard one to
I
answer
know.
because I was all about and I still am all about TV. I mean, so for like kids networks, does this include live action and cartoons, or are we splitting those?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I think that's separate. So TV show, yeah, cartoon would be separate.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So if we're going top for TV shows like live action
Mm.
TV shows,
Yeah.
Keenan and Kel,
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
Loves Raymond, Fresh Prince, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and man, there's just like so many that are up there. Um, let me keep those are the top four.
Gotcha. Okay. That's the thing, because like, yes, there are 90s shows, but they're still so beloved. You know what I mean? Like,
Abs-
honestly, like they're timeless.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I think almost all of those are available for streaming, and that's also pretty much what I love to rewatch.
exactly. Okay. And so then favorite cartoon?
Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
even tougher. So you know what's interesting? I'll tell you is like one of the popular. A lot of times I'll do like Q&As on social or like go live and stuff. And one of the questions I always get is like, were you a Nickelodeon kid, a Cartoon Network kid, or a Disney kid? And I legitimately can't answer that because I really was just like a cartoon kid. Like I used to watch shit on all three networks, and so for top for me, I have really for Nickelodeon, Rugrats, Doug, Rocco, Hey Arnold, and early SpongeBob. Those are all
Mm,
top for me. Cartoon Network, man, Cartoon Network was super special. I mean, so I remember in the early '90s before they used to do original programming. Everything was syndicated. All the Hanna-Barbera shit, all the Looney Tunes. I was heavy on that. All the old school cartoons that were way before our generation, but it's just that's what used to be on TV. So I was
yeah.
all about it. Bugs Bunny inspired a lot of my personality
Right.
and life. But once they started original programming, Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, huge on Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and then overall probably every iteration of Scooby Doo, for sure. And then for Disney, I was pretty big on Ducktales, Recess, Pepper Ann, The Weekenders. shit like that. So that wasn't a good answer to your question because you said what was your favorite cartoon, but it's the real answer because I really do. It just depends on the mood or what point of your life you're in when of what you want to consume. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's so true. Yeah, because also it's like early 90s versus late 90s, so even that,
Yes,
that's
yes,
too funny.
yes.
Okay, so favorite movie.
That, oh my God.
Mm.
That might be even worse for me to answer than the cartoon one. So okay, I'll tell you this. It's movies from the 90s, right? That will limit it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Okay, okay. Because I was also thinking about movies that I watched in the 90s, which weren't necessarily from the 90s. But now,
Mm.
okay. Um, I mean, I used to rewatch all of Jim Carrey's movies over and over again.
Uh,
So Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and that also was big inspiration for me. I used to run around the house, imitating Jim Carrey and thinking that I was like the funniest kid on the planet. So, I mean, definitely those. The Batman movies from the 90s, I used to watch a lot. The two Tim Burton ones and the Joel Schumacher ones that nobody likes, but I love them.
uh,
Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I thought those were amazing movies, very entertaining. I don't see the issue with them. Amazing cast. Um, Mortal Kombat, fuck heavy on Mortal Kombat. Fucking Three Ninjas. Big on the ninja stuff in the 90s. So all the Ninja Turtles movies, the live, the original live action ones from the 90s,
yeah.
three three ninjas, surf ninjas. There was a bit of a ninja renaissance going on in the 90s for sure. And then all the dope action movies that were coming out then, all the Schwarzenegger stuff, all the Van Damme stuff. Big Van Damme fan. Street Fighter, you know. Um, yeah, Cool Runnings. Used to watch Cool Runnings a lot.
Oh. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I just named you like a wide array of movies, but it's true. I'm a movie buff, so I watch so much shit.
Fantastic. That's all really awesome stuff. Okay, and we kind of touched on this one too, but favorite artist or maybe band?
Sure. You know what? Okay,
Mm.
so it's Eminem for all time, but
Mm.
if I had to like for one decade, it might be Will Smith. Will Smith is all I neglected to say his name earlier. I don't know why, but think about like he's also in top rappers for me, which a lot of
Mm.
people don't say, or I think there's a lot of hip hop that see him as not really like a real part of it for whatever reason. But Will Smith has always been top rappers for me. The delivery, the flow, the lyrics, like it's fire. You know what I mean? And I remember listening to Millennium and Big Willie style just over and over and over again. Those are repeats for me. So that might Will Smith might be my most listened to artist of that decade.
Oh, cool. And again, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that theme song,
And
So
again,
there you
Fresh
go.
Fresh Prince of Bel Air, yeah.
Very cool. Okay,
And
what
you
about,
said band too.
oh yeah. Mhm.
90s band. Blink 182 wasn't 90s, right? It was afterward when we were in like middle school. What 90s band did I listen to? Okay, I'm gonna be if it counts because I was a big Backstreet Boys fan. So if that
Oh,
if a boy
yes.
band will count, then I'll say Backstreet Boys. Heavy on Backstreet Boys.
Oh, I love that. I love Backstreet Boys. Yeah, fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, what about favorite 90s trend, would you say?
Ooh. Let's see. I mean, one that seems to have been making a comeback that I didn't really stop was just like wearing your clothes baggy, like baggy jeans and
Oh,
and uh and shit like that. I think for at least for millennials, there became like a pretty like a movement toward like skinny jeans and stuff
yeah.
like that. Which I'm not mad at, but I loved rocking my shit, especially my jeans baggy. So I'm happy that I can do that again now and be like, oh hey, this guy's back in fashion. I uh I love that people used to what seems to be making a fucking comeback now that a
Mm.
lot of people seems to think they invented, but hoop earrings. I have both my ears pierced with hoops.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, 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 and or I guess hoop earrings on dudes specifically. I think there in during the '90s you'd see a lot of guys that had that, and then less so later on. But I think now I've seen a lot of Gen Z dudes that have the hoop earrings in, and I'm like, oh, right on, man. I never took them off, so
Mm.
I
That
um
is interesting. Honestly, like fashion trends, like they fade and they come back around. So I do find that interesting.
big
Yeah.
time, big time. Just for anybody that thinks they're out of fashion, just stay the course, and eventually you will be in fashion.
Very true, honestly. Yeah, spot on with that.
Yeah.
And last but not least, what about a favorite 90s quote?
Oh man. So that's just like from anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's broad. So
Oh my God. This is gonna
I
be
know
so
it could be like a
stupid,
show movie.
but
Yeah,
yeah. This is just the first one that popped into my head
sure.
from Ninja Turtles. Wise man say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
That's so
that
good. Oh, I love it. That's very good. There you go.
was a Michelangelo quote.
Very nice, very nice. Ten, such an absolute pleasure. So I love ending my interviews by asking advice. This could be life advice, career advice, best piece of advice you've gotten, any advice you care to share.
Sure, sure, sure. Let me preface by saying, and first also, the pleasure has been mine. I have to say, very impressed by the amount of homework that you did.
Thank you.
Um, Holy shit! That's I have a lot of respect for you as a host, and that's why I enjoyed listening to your episode with Jay that I mentioned before, and I
Mhm.
will continue listening to your podcast. And thank you for being so awesome, and like I said, having done so much research and having so many cool things to talk about. In terms of advice, a quick preface to that is, and I will say some, but I just want to preface with saying like whenever someone asks me that, I always am like, I don't feel qualified to give any because I'm just like, okay, I don't feel as though I'm at a point in my career where I'm like, I've achieved enough to say, hey, whatever this guy says should be valid. It's still, a bit of like, yeah, I feel like, okay, maybe like you should take what I say with a grain of salt. But along those lines, I'll say a couple of things. Just what I feel like I've learned, and some of it has been through just, making mistakes and stuff like that. Number one, as we touched upon before, in any field you're going to be in, but especially in the creative one, is
Mhm.
just be yourself and don't be afraid to be yourself, no matter what that is. I think that's the biggest one. You are enough. Like you, whoever you are, you're the only one of you that there is. So that's a commodity right there. And so don't ever try to be like somebody else or follow a trend like that. Somebody else already exists. You don't need to be the next that. You just need to be the first you. And so even if you're not getting a lot of attention at first, who does? That's just the way the cookie crumbles. And that goes to the next point that I'm going to say is stay the course. Whatever you're pursuing, I think that a lot of people, especially these days, get more discouraged more quickly, even before you were referencing how quickly people will abandon doing a podcast because of the gratification aspect of it. People will be like, well, I didn't get instant gratification for doing, I did 7 episodes and I don't have a million listeners. So this must not be good. This must not be working out. That's not the case at all. I just wish more people would understand like anything you're working at is going to take time. You're gonna have to put in the hours, the 10,000 hours, and you're gonna have to be an artist and a stand-up comic that might be performing for 5 people or less, which I have done. You're gonna have to be putting out a podcast that gets 2 views or less. It might be just your mom, right? For a little bit, you're gonna have to do stuff to catch that momentum. But if you're not doing it, then you have zero chance, right? So take the risk and don't be afraid of other people thinking that, and I've been guilty of this myself. So I'm a person that needs to always take my own advice too. But I've been guilty of like, oh man, it's gonna be so whack if you put this out and it gets not that many views. It's gonna suck, right? You think that,
Mhm.
but that's not the case, man. If anybody does think that, fuck them, and you just like fuck them because they didn't put shit out. Like, you know what I mean? And you'll never get criticism from someone that's doing better than you. Never. That's just a big fact, right? It's never happened once, probably in the history of criticism, right? People that are hating on you, never doing better than you. They wish that they were trying what you were, had the balls to do, had the guts to do what you were doing, right?
Mhm.
Um, and on the last token of that is just do whatever you're doing, just do the fucking thing. Like, don't don't get bogged down in the planning phase. And this is the biggest advice that I have to take, and I've learned to as well. Like, don't get bogged down in the planning phase, in the I will release or do this when the timing is just right phase. Because what I've learned is like that doesn't exist. And it's just an easy way to keep yourself in some sort of a comfort zone. Like, yo, I will release these songs, or I will take new headshots next year when I look better, or I will make this demo reel next year when I get this camera, or something like that. There's always a reason to wait to do shit. There's always a reason to wait. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. Don't be that person that's just waiting. If you want to do something, do it. Like, I mean, Bruce Lee said, if you keep thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done. And I think that's fully accurate. Obviously, I'm not saying be on the other extreme where you don't think about shit and you just like do, nonsense, but like, don't hesitate and don't wait too long to do whatever it is that you're going to do, whether it's write or act or direct or whatever it is. We all now in 2024, we all have access to make shit. Every single one of us. Like, the barriers to entry are so much less than they were, even when we were kids. Like, there almost are none if you have the desire. So make the shit, whatever it is you want to do. Just get it done.
Amen to all of that, Tenn. That's fucking amazing advice. Okay,
Thank you.
honestly, I resonate with amazing, incredible. Thank you so much for that. That was fantastic. So also, please feel free to share where people can find you on social media, your podcast, all that great stuff.
Sure. So I'm at Tenn Buick on all platforms. So that's TENN, two N's, TENN, Buick like a skylark on all platforms. Yeah, pretty much anywhere that you can find content, you can find me. And the podcast is called All Grown Up SYKE, and that's available anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
Wonderful. This was so great. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
This was such a pleasure, Ali. Thank you for having me on. It has been an honor.
Thanks so much. I'm glad you had fun too. And this was fantastic. Going back to the 90s, all great. Amazing.
Hell yeah.
Love it. And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Check out storytellingsaga.com and feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.